It is pure delight as always to see your shiny faces energetically, because of course I can't see you as the way you can see me. I'm Stacy Hall, your host for the Lighthouse Path podcast, where my guests and I do our best to turn your light back on if it's been feeling a little bit dim, so that you can shine the light on your audience and share your wisdom with more people for more sales, more satisfaction, more success. And in the studio with me today is somebody that I admire greatly. It's Rhonda Travers. She calls herself a people strategist because she's on a mission to transform the way organizations culturally show up, meaning she helps be able to forge closer relationships and rapport between managers and their employees, between leaders and their team members, and between business partners choosing to collaborate with each other. And I'm sure we would all love to be able to know the secret to having those long-lasting, mutually satisfying relationships that Rhonda Travers helps her clients be able to have. So with that, I would love for you to meet Rhonda. She started out, hard to believe, as a certified internal auditor, then became a master practitioner and trainer of NLP. She's also an author in 2 global #1 best-selling books, and she's a sought-after speaker. So it is a delight to say, welcome, Rhonda, into the studio.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, well, good. Let's get to it, because I had a question that I really would love for you to answer. And I think my audience would love for you to answer too, because as people, I generally, the people who choose to be lighthouses, if you ask them, would you love to be able to have closer rapport and relationship with the people you interact with, they would all say yes.
Sure.
That said, if you were to ask the question, do you have that close relationship and rapport with others? Not everybody would be able to say yes, they do 100% of the time. So I'm going to ask you to tell me, why do you think that is? What's getting in the way of relationship and rapport?
Well, that's a great question. And a couple of things. One is, in today's digital space, it is so easy to think that, oh, I'm going to shoot off that quick text or that quick instant message to a peer, a coworker, an employee, or it's just easier to, send off that email that, to get what I need. And we lose the power of personal conversation through the digital space that we live in today. And, the digital space is great and has a purpose and a meaning behind it. It creates efficiencies. But if we use it so much and we lean on it too much, it really impacts the level of rapport and relationship that we have with others, both personally and professionally.
I'm doing my best to wrap my head around that. So I'm going to ask you, not that I didn't understand it, just seeing it play out. Could you share with us like a transformation that you actually participated in making? So how it was to where it is now, a real situation, if you would.
Sure. I work with other leaders who they have remote employees. And so they feel like, okay, well, I reach out to them via an instant message daily. So we're connected, right? Because I'm reaching out to them every single day. But then the frustration comes along because that leader feels like, or that owner feels like, I was really clear with my instructions to that person. I sent them an email with all the instructions. So they should be able to understand what I meant by that. And so I have a particular business owner in mind that we had that very conversation. He was quite frustrated with his remote employee because that remote employee wasn't producing the type of work that he was expecting. And he thought he was clear on that. And so I mentioned, well, what are the other ways that you're communicating with that person? Is it just email and text? And so once you start incorporating a weekly call with that person, a virtual call, so they could really have a conversation, human voices, to really identify where there is a gap in that communication that doesn't get translated over very clearly to the other person in an email or a text. That really helped build the rapport with that person, that after about a month, I ran into that businessman owner again, and he felt like things were a lot clearer. Meetings were very smooth, and the outcome and the product that he was receiving back from this employee was more in alignment with what he expected. So his frustration level went down, and the employee was happier because they were having conversation and identifying where are those gaps in understanding, because that employee actually was getting frustrated as well, as far as always being corrected and not feeling like, well, I did enough, I did what you said. So when there's assumptions happening in our digital space, and you're going back and forth and back and forth, that just elevates the level of frustration on both ends. And so when he incorporated having those weekly meetings, it really created a space of better comfort. So that's a lot with that, what's happening with rapport when you have communication digitally.
Yeah, yes, I'll say that was clear, very, very much so. Would you say that's normally the issue? Is assumptions being made? Is there something that you would recommend to everybody here that they check themselves on right now? Like, if they're leaders, which I would expect most folks here are leading in some way or collaborating in some way, how would it be helpful for us to check in with ourselves to see if we're contributing to putting up walls in rapport?
Yes, a lot of leaders communicate in the way that works for them. And one thing that I love learning throughout the years, as I managed employees myself for over 20 years, and then also digging deeper into NLP, is we all communicate differently and we all learn differently. So the more leaders understand that others will communicate in a different manner than them, and they learn differently, and meeting people where they're at, it goes back to finding common ground. How do we find common ground as a leader for connection with who we're speaking with, our employees, our business managers? And so the way you can identify, I might communicate very directly. And however, my employee or who I'm communicating with, they're more of a relationship. They want to talk about the weekend or the weather or the sports, or they want something a little bit more personal than just starting a meeting and just diving right into the agenda. Because then there might be a perception of, oh gosh, my manager doesn't really care about me. They're not really interested in who I am. They're just diving into deadlines and tasks and things like that. So the more we can identify with, we communicate, how does that other person communicate? Are they into those relationships? Are they more that more direct style? And how do I find that common ground with that? And then also learning. I find this a lot with leaders, is they teach and train others based on how they learn. And I'm working with a client right now who has a supervisor, and she is very direct and she's very quick to learn things after verbal conversation. But a lot of our employees are getting extremely frustrated because they're visual learners. So when this supervisor is talking to them, she's just talking and maybe not showing, providing visual. Or for kinesthetic learners, be able to just click themselves while this supervisor is talking so that they can get into it and do it themselves while the supervisor is providing some kind of feedback. So understanding that the way I'm going to train somebody or explain a process or a procedure as a leader, my style might not align with theirs and how they learn. So how do we find that common ground to speak and communicate in a way, in a level that they can understand and retain, because then that minimizes frustration. It minimizes so many different things that affects culture on a day-to-day basis.
Even inside of marriages, I will say my husband and I have two completely different learning styles. If I ask him to show me how to, especially on the computer, like if something's wonky,
Yeah.
I want someone to stand over my shoulder while my hand is on the device
Mm-hmm.
and say, click this, go this. He can't. He has to actually do it himself. So, I mean, I guess we're kind of the same, but it makes it difficult then for one to teach the other. It's like, I see what you're doing, but until I do it myself, I'm not going to get it.
Exactly. Well, I learned, I share this, my very first experience right out of college into the workforce. For the longest time, I thought that my audit supervisor didn't like me because I didn't understand about these communication styles. And she was very short, brief, direct, to the point. And if you haven't figured out, I am a talker. I will sit, I will chat with you. And I didn't understand the different communication styles. So I just thought she just, didn't care. And then the way I was trained was, here's a stack of work papers, go read them and do what was done last year. And for me, I am an auditory digital learner. Auditory digital learners need to understand the logical flow and process. That makes me a great recovering auditor because we're process oriented. So looking at those work papers, I didn't understand, well, what process took place in order to get to the end product that I saw in the work paper. So that is the thing where that supervisor, she was just supervising based on the tools that she was given as a newly promoted supervisor. And a lot of newly promoted supervisors don't have the tools to understand we all learn and communicate differently. And how do you meet someone and find common ground for a connection with someone? And that was the basis in that learning aha moment for the rest of my career of how do I find common ground with others? Because I need more of that visual and someone explaining the process to me. And you have a lot of auditory digital learners out there. 40% of the population needs to understand the process and not just give them a manual to read, not just to go click on things, but they need to understand the why behind what they're seeing in order to. So once you have an aha moment like that as a leader, I have seen that light bulb go off, and it really has created a lot of better connection between that leader and the employee with the different organizations that I've worked with.
Yes. And bringing it back as well. I completely agree with you. Bringing it back into collaboration with somebody that doesn't report to us, but co-create. This metaphor came back as you were speaking, and that is that as we're co-creating a project, let's say with somebody, it's like a party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so assigning responsibilities isn't just, so imagine the party. Let's say I'm going to bring, it's a dinner party. I'm going to bring the main dish. You bring the sides, right? You could say to somebody, you bring the sides, and they could wind up bringing 2 different bags of potato chips. Mm-hmm. Where you thought they were going to, like bring a potato salad and bring, some coleslaw, as opposed to, well, it's sides. So be more careful as well in painting the picture of the vision we have of what we would like to see the other person bring, so that the other person can say yay or nay. Mm-hmm. This is what I can do instead, right?
Absolutely. I love that analogy. That is a great analogy.
It stayed with me all these years, right? I don't remember too many jokes, but that analogy has stayed with me as, oh yeah, I can't assume that we have the same definition for the same word or the same end result. So
exactly.
So you are offering a complimentary strategy session. Who is this for primarily, so that folks who are watching can be sure that, oh yeah, she means me? And what's going to happen during the complimentary strategy session?
Well, the strategy session is for anyone who leads. Anyone, if you're a business owner and you're wanting to grow your team and hire for the first time, and maybe you're taking a step back going, well, I've never really managed employees before. What does that look like? Or maybe you're in a department and you oversee a team of employees, or if a nonprofit, you oversee a team of volunteers, and you want to know, what does that look like? How am I creating connection, rapport, and relationships so that it's a thriving culture in the environment that I work in? And that truly is where we are going to dive into in that strategy session. What questions do you have? Or if you really want to identify with your team, the level of engagement with your team, on my website, I have a free employee engagement quiz that in 5 minutes, it covers 14 different retention strategies. And at the end, it gives you results. And then in our strategy session, after you get the results and book a call with me, we can dive into one of the lower scores where maybe it identified a gap that you weren't aware of, that's creating that needing a bridge between that connection that you want to build, that rapport that you want to build, the engagement that you want to build with others. And so we'll take a deeper dive into what is something that you can do tomorrow to be able to increase and enhance that level of rapport that you have with that coworker, with that employee, with a peer.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is valuable. I would take advantage of it. I have. All right, Rhonda, thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Gave us some very specific tips on how we can be exploring whether we're building rapport or keeping people at arm's length from us, or confused, even at worst. And to all of you, fabulously wonderful information on once we have raised our own vibration, shining our light, how we can let others know that we care about them and how they want to learn, how they want to communicate, what results they want to create. So thank you to all of you for watching, and continue, please, to shine on.